Good morning, everyone. We are very lucky to see you again for this new season of our series of panels that was named From Home Export Days until last summer. The new name is On the Go. I am Françoise Claire. I am the head of classical music at the Centre National de la Musique, and together with Eric Denut on my right-hand side, we are going to have this discussion, and the topic today is linked, very much linked actually, with the launch of the Philharmonie des enfants in Paris. And we have the great honor and pleasure to welcome Mathilde Michel, who is the director of the Philharmonie des enfants. And more widely, the topic of today is to talk about how invite and bring together children and teenagers to classical music. That's a vast topic, and we have an amazing panel made of ladies only, and we are delighted for that. And thank you very much for being with us this morning, and over to you, Eric.
Thanks, François. Yeah. Thanks so much for being with us. We are very grateful to our great panelists who accepted, despite a very tight time schedule, including Mathilde Michel, number one, who just launched on September 29, the Philharmonie des enfants, Children's Philharmonie in Paris. We are very, very grateful to you. So let me first start with introducing you. So let's start with Mathilde Michel. Warm welcome, Mathilde.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Mathilde is directing the Philharmonie des enfants, and she will report, I think it will be one of your first reports, public ones. So all the more thanks. Then we have Marielle Cafafa, who is a conductor and a pedagogue, a teacher. Good morning, Marielle.
Good morning.
We have Géraldine Aliberti, founder, CEO of a private company called Solveig, as well as of band or song called Les Clés de l'écoute. Is that right, Géraldine? So thanks for being with us. Cathy Milliken, we are very proud having Cathy first because she is a great artist, and she will be telling us about her multi-size talent. And she's the first lady coming from Oceania, Australia, to be more precise, to be on the panel for the last 18 months. So very proud having you. Good morning, Cathy. And let me introduce you, Joe Buckley. Joe is the CEO of the Dunedin, which is the first name of Edinburgh, if I'm right, Dunedin Consort in Scotland. And Joe is also a musicologist. So warm welcome to you.
Good morning.
Let me please start maybe with a very general affair, which is your personal career related to what we called Kinderszenen, scenes from a childhood, which is the title of this show, of this On the Go show. So why did you meet that topic of, let's say, young people, we could also say now digital natives, and classical music, which is pretty much a digital immigrants thing, let's say, which is a very traditional thing. So how did you come in your career as an artist, as a manager, as a public servant, as an entrepreneur, come into relationship with that topic? Let me maybe start with Cathy. Is that okay for you? So.
Yes, I have an interesting way in. I was a musician in a contemporary music group, and then there was a seminal event that happened, and that was in Berlin, and it was a meeting with London Sinfonietta and one of their response projects, and they actually brought their expertise to Berlin, and I had the great opportunity to meet two wonderful people, Nigel Osborne and Richard McNichol, and just from that event, and then later on Gillian Moore taking me to the National Youth Orchestra's creative programs, and suddenly this whole world opened up. I had a teaching degree as well, but just suddenly this creative work with children, with young adults, and actually, you know, going into the nitty gritty of their world and how do they appreciate music, and how do we then actually come together to make music together, and then further on to sort of link it up to, you know, seminal repertoire pieces of either classical or contemporary music was just, you know, was an absolute eye-opener for me. So that was my way in. And in a sense, I've just kept doing that, even though my own career has actually verged more on the composition side, but always, you know, it actually led then from the Ensemble Moderne to the leading the education department of the Berlin Philharmonic. So I don't know, it all just seemed to sort of somehow come together, and it's become an intrinsic part of my own music making, is to consider the worlds of other people, the worlds of other people of other ages, of other creeds, of wherever, and to actually say, how do we all fit in and make music together?
Fascinating. Thank you. Thank you. So I hadn't mentioned it, but I knew we would be coming up to that. So Cathy has been during several years, 7, 8 years, I can't remember exactly, head of education at Berliner Philharmoniker, had been working very closely with Simon Retzel, and you will be testimonying about that later on. Géraldine, so you are also a musicologist, probably also an artist. More than that, you've been not only managing Sonic Solveig, Les Clés de l'Écoute, but you are also signing up projects, shows on stage. So, and I don't remember rightly, you have been trained as a music manager, as well as a musicologist. So how did you, when and why and how did you decide to focus your career, your professional path to these projects? You are mute, Géraldine, you have to unmute yourself. Thanks.
Exactly, Eric. I create entertainments with orchestra for young people and mainly new audiences. I come from an education background, and I create now entertainments without an educative dimension assumed, because I consider the emotion, the feelings, and the sharing most important than a message and knowledge. A new audience will come back to a concert because he has felt a huge emotion unexplained. And that is this huge emotion I want to facilitate between the musicians and the audience. And it comes through the understanding that I don't want to make visible this lesson we can give in this entertainment. It's just a way and not an object, not an aim. I want the audience understands by itself, enters step by step in the masterpiece, and listens more clearly, most evident at the end. I want to transform our ear and give keys to listen each musical brilliant element, and don't miss each beauty, each inventive idea the music can give us. We give keys without giving the door lock. I don't know if it's correct in English. It's very important for us that the audience can make his own way in the listening. We practice an active listening to follow the model of the active pedagogies as Montessori, Steiner, De Crowley, and that's why we developed 2 augmented and virtual reality applications in Sonic Solveig for more interaction with music, immersive, and push the auditor to a new way of listening. And maybe après je pourrais peut-être partager l'écran.
Yeah, that maybe we'll be. Thanks so much, Géraldine. It was a great introduction. Maybe we will be sharing a little bit later. And I had the feeling it could have been signed by the Philharmonie des enfants. It was kind of mission statement too. I mean, I noticed you were talking about emotions, of course, sharing things instead of sharing only knowledge, and putting focus on beauty, activating the wonders of art through the art heart more than through the mind. Mathilde, is it something probably which has been also very much in the mindset of the Children's Philharmonie, and how did it materialize now for a week?
Thank you. Let me perhaps share something rather personal about this topic, because I would like to say that I was taught music when I was a child in Morocco with an Hungarian teacher who taught me with Kodai method. So where the game is the heart of the educational model. And that was very impressive for me, because afterward, when I was in France, I wasn't convinced with the educational method in France, where children were far from playing and feeling emotional music. And this is why perhaps I came through this project after more than 12 years at France Télévisions, where I created a Culture Box, which is an offer dedicated to living broadcasting rehearsals or shows. And we tried in the Philharmonie des Enfants to build an educative approach which will allow an easy and motivating way to discover sounds and music, but also the development of other abilities allowed by music practices like socialization, self-esteem, creativity, collective intelligence, cooperation through generation and between children. It will also open a window of the world of musical diversity through the representation of various musical traditions, because in the Philharmonie des Enfants, they are not only the Eastern, Western Europe musical tradition for the last 300 years, but also local traditions, electro, pop, rock, etc. So this is the heart of this project. We are sure that music can bring children to this kind of abilities and help them to grow. So
I'm sure. Thanks so much, Mathilde. You will be very impatient to discover what Sonic Solveig is doing on stage, as well as what the Philharmonie looks like. But it's coming up in the show. So thanks so much for this short introduction. Shall I pass forward to Marielle? So Marielle, you've been also a taught musician, also a taught dancer, if I'm right. You have compiled the most difficult diplomas in France, certificat d'aptitude and agrégation. And now you've been working on a PhD, you are preparing to publish a book. So why on earth did you dedicate your work to youth and not to the usual focus group of classical music, which are 55 plus white males, so to say? So tell me.
Yes, for me, youth is very important. In fact, all my activities is around the youth, around the children, around the teenagers, around the students. So I'm conductor currently. I conduct a children orchestra in the north of France, thanks to the Philharmonie de Paris. And for me, the job of conductor is a fusion of all the jobs that I dreamed of doing when I was a little girl. So it's very important for me to be connected with my childhood. And as a conductor, I have a very special vision of conducting. So it's my job to make the link between childhood and all my activities. It's important for me to show to the children that we can be successful, we can be active, we can make a lot of things, even if we come from disadvantaged neighborhoods like me, because I come from a lower social class, so it's important for me to be here for all the children, all the students also, because I'm also a professor at Normandy University, and I make the same work with my student, and with my student I have to with my children I like to make the link between my research, my personal research, and my teaching. So actually, currently I'm preparing a book about sing without words, and also about emotion. Make the link between vocalize and emotion. I make also the link between childhood and sing without words, because I think that vocalizes, sing without words, it's a way to connect to our inner child. So the childhood is it's always here in my mind, so it's very important for me.
Fascinating. Thanks so much. We come later on the whole of this triangle in your daily life between teaching, indeed in Rouen, a quite famous faculty of musicology in France, which has been the very place of many very brilliant careers in the CNRS and different musicology societies. You conducting in the framework of Demos, which has also been very deeply leveraged by the Philharmonie De Paris, and your activity as an author. Let's cross the channel. Let's go up to the north. We all know from the continent we are so admirative of the very tricky business models of British ensembles and orchestras, and maybe more broadly about the Anglo-Saxon world and way of managing and doing and financing music. But as I was checking more closely the different aspects of the Dunedin Consort's activity, I was definitely convinced it's not so much about private resources and ticketing than it's a very inner conviction. It's necessary to work for the community. So, Joe, you've been trained as a musicologist, you've been writing a PhD, you'll probably also be publishing several articles and conferences, but now you're managing a private company in some way. But I'm sure there is a strong link between all of this. So please tell us why you have been going into that boat and cruise.
Thanks, Eric, and hello everyone. Yeah, I am a manager now. I manage a Dunedin Consort. I suppose I had a very well, not an unusual path to here, but I've done a lot of things along the way. I was a musicologist, as you said, and once upon a time I wanted to be a musician as well. And I suppose looking back on my childhood, I was very lucky. I grew up in an area where there was a lot of musical activity. It was normal to do all that, to spend all my spare time at orchestras, going on orchestra courses, learning an instrument, singing in choirs. It was normal, and I loved it, and I benefited hugely from those experiences. But only as an adult looking back do I realize quite what I benefited from. I'm not a musician now, but I came away with all of the skills that Mathilde was talking about in terms of social connections and personal development that music can bring. So I suppose that's one aspect of why I'm really interested in music education. Along that route towards getting where I am now, I worked for a while for Sing Up, which was about 15 years ago, as a kind of, still exists, but it was a sort of flagship program from the UK government to get more children singing across the UK. I was supposed to be managing the program in a particular area in the northeast of England, but as it turned out, I ended up leading the choirs. And this was in areas where children had never sung before, there'd never been a local choir. It was in quite rural areas as well, where there was perhaps less access to cities, less access to towns. And they were, some of the communities were more isolated geographically because of where they were. And we set up these choirs, which then came together and sang in events. And because I was in the room and actually leading the choirs, I saw kind of how transformative these experiences were for these children who'd never done it before. So anyway, many years further down the line, I came to Dunedin Consort, and I've been here for 3 years now. And I inherited quite a small education program. At the time, we were going into 4 or 5 schools a year and doing some foundational music workshops. And now that program has expanded. We go to 18 schools a year with around 1,100 children, and we're expanding all the time. And we've also launched some video series, which maybe I'll share with you later. But what's become clear to me is that when I was growing up, there was a natural pathway in terms of music provision. You started learning an instrument, and then you went on to the orchestra, and then you did this. There was always something at every point along the journey. And I don't know how it is on the continent, but here that provision is much more patchy now. It's much more, it's potluck. It's kind of a postcode lottery. It slightly depends where you are. And what I think is really important, and we'll probably talk about this, is making sure that those pathways still exist, so that you don't lose children along the way. You know, if someone finds, oh wow, I love singing, they then need to be given the opportunity to develop that, and not to fall off and get lost in, you know, in the ether. A lot of that work, I think, is now falling to organizations like mine and to charitable organizations to do a lot of the work that perhaps isn't done by the government. Maybe we can talk about that a bit more. But that's kind of the mixture of where my passion comes from, personal experience and having seen the transformation that it can have.
Great. So Robert Schumann's, the very composer of the Scenes of a Childhood, wanted to find an invasion in the ether, but now we are trying to pick up our kids who can be left in the ether and coming back to reality and having that transformative experience through music. If you all agree with that, maybe let's discover now the Philharmonie des enfants with Mathilde in kind of audiovisual way.
Yeah, thank you. I will share a short presentation. Would like me to say a few words about the Philharmonie de Paris, or is this institution very clear?
As you wish.
Well, just a few words. So this Cité de la Musique Philharmonie de Paris is probably one of the largest musical complex in Europe. It's not simply an organization running 3 concert halls. Its primary aim is to refresh our approach to music by putting concerts at the heart of a system of dynamic, user-friendly communication that also includes exhibition visits and educational group practices since 1995, and musical culture courses, together with access to editorial and digital resources. Very quickly, I may show you the main concert halls. Here's the Grande Salle Pierre Boulez. And here the concert hall of Cité de la Musique. There's also a collection of unique musical instruments and temporary exhibitions. The permanent collection of the Musée National de la Musique holds more than 7,000 instruments and art objects. It covers the history of Western music from the 60s centuries to the present, and summarizes the world's main musical culture. The museum also organizes major temporary exhibitions on the widest range of subjects, from David Bowie to Marc Chagall, including the Beethoven legend and so on. Can you see my presentation? I can't see it anymore. Okay. What I would like to show you next, the Philharmonie de Paris. Philharmonie de Paris has a large experience of educational projects where every kind of visitor can immerse themselves in various repertories, from classical music to traditional genres. There are also an organization all over France of about 50 or so symphonic orchestra of children aged 7 to 12, taught by professional musicians, called demos orchestras. You said a few words about it, Eric. So we now are opening a new area, 1,000 square meters area, which is called Philharmonie des enfants. I would say that this project has been led during more than 3 years. And the main objective of it is to create a permanent exhibition for children aged 4 to 10, with a unique and original approach, where children can discover music in their own ways, freely, without an authority, so they can play, explore, listen, feel, live music. And the space is designed especially for children. And we also are very careful to that disabled or special needs children would feel at home, thanks to inclusive activities. I will describe it afterwards. So this project proposes an experimentation of exploration of every form of music for children, a multisensory, fun, interactive approach then can be supervised by teacher when they come with a class group, or independent. And it also is organized to facilitate intergenerational links and socialization, and encourage children's development and their awareness of music. So our commitments are the following: play and autonomy, sensitive experience, collaboration and complementarity, and imagination and freedom. And the layout of the space was created by Constance Guisset, who is a French designer, who has created a very phantasmagoric space, which is the following. 5 universes or areas are proposed to children. The first of all is the Forêt des Sons, forest of sound, then sound machines, on stage, thousands of voices, and music this way. These are few pictures of the space where you can see children discover the proposition. The Forest of Sound is dedicated to acoustic phenomenon and sound that provides an immediate and sensorial approach to sound, and also presents sounds from sounds that children can discover at home on their own ways. The second area is dedicated to sound machine. The installation are very big machines, were acoustic at first, and musical instruments, and show how musical instruments have evolved to be electronic. And it shows how we can use these instruments, who are created especially for this area, with blowing, hitting, rubbing, or pinching. For example, there's a wind giant, which is the biggest flute you may perhaps ever seen, mixed with a pipe with an organ. So these are children playing while sitting with this organ. After that, we have the universe on stage. Here, children may play with two main installations, the orchestra conducting installation and a room where they can play amplified music with a guitar or a keyboard. And it's about to share the experience between the musicians and the audience. The installation where children can conduct an orchestra has been produced with a subsidiary of IRCAM, which is the sound research institution in France. And the gameplay is built on a processor that recognizes gestures of the children and in real time produces recorded music when the child moves slower, then the music plays slower, and when he has large gestures, so the music plays louder, and so on. We have tried to have low-tech installations because we think that children are mainly connected and exposed to screen all over the days, and we will here try to make them feel the music without seeing only a screen. So, for example, this conducting installation proposed them to be connected with instruments made in wood. And this is the music, amplified music. The fourth area is dedicated to body and voices, called Thousands of Voices, which propose them to play with their voices and bodies and make the experience of what they can produce musically with their bodies. For example, here in this area, there's a huge world map cabin, world map cabin that you can see behind this these two girls, in collaboration with artist Brecht Evans, which results in a geographical yet dreamlike representation of vocal expressions all around the world. And they also can play, dance, and make music noise with their bodies. And the fifth area is called Music This Way, is dedicated to music as a language and as a means of expression. It displays all its evocative power, its ability to tell stories, and it also introduces children to musical composition and writing. And for example, in this area, there's this installation called Compositrain, which lets children compose music with a grammar of shapes and colors. And when the trains go through these circuits, they can read the music children have composed. Well, there also are installations showing the link between cinema, movies, and music, and the emotional power of the music. There also are two remaining rooms in this educational path or exhibition path. First of all, Earful. This is an immersive studio where the 3 sounds diffusion is made possible by 61 sound speaker and a sound spatialization processor given by ELISA Hyperreal 3D method. and about 20 films, very short film lasting for 3 to 6 minutes, can give an immersion to children in a classical or modern or electronic music. And at the end of it, there's a small factory which is about to open in 2022. When we designed the project, we always tried to be sure that the installations we imagined were close to the user experience and abilities of the children. So we have kept test and learn process during 3 years, and we want to keep this process after the opening of the Philharmonie des enfants, where game designers, developers, musicians, creators, or experts of educational music can test their prototypes in this area. For example, in April 2019, we welcomed more than 1,300 children to test our prototypes. We had 12 or 13 prototypes at the time, and make sure that they were really adapted to children instinctively, and they can be taken in hands by them without too much explanation, because in this area, in the Philharmonie des enfants, they are not musician teachers. They are only children with adults or teacher when they come with a class group, and they are about to make their own experience. So the activities and the installations have to be very intuitive. And this is, I think, the end of my presentation with the different spaces, different areas. We have opened the Philharmonie des enfants last week, so it's very short to have conclusions about the succeed or the things we have to improve. But what we feel is that first of all, children are very lucky to be here, are very involved in their activities, and they find something, they always find something that catch their attention and make feel them happier or interested by a single thing or different things. There are also a lot of disabled or special needs children who are welcoming here. And we feel that they also are feel good in our space. So this is encouraging for the rest of the adventure.
Wow. So this is awesome. I know the press reaction was very positive, and some people, I think, at Le Monde was writing that if ever he could become a child again. Now there is this Peter Pan syndrome now going up through the country. So it is open to adults. Can you come with your children?
Yeah, you can come when you are an adult, but you must have a child between 4 and 10 with you. So,
okay, so
it's also baby friendly, but when baby can hear songs from different cultures and so on, but they are not, the installations are not made for them. So.
Okay, so no babies, no toddlers, or just a few, and not so many above 10 years old. Yeah. You said about 1,000 square meters. How long do you need to pay visit? What do you need to plan?
Mm-hmm. It's 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, because we think that young children, especially under 6, will be too much excited if they play more than 1 hour. So we think that is a good time to discover. Of course, they cannot discover 32 installation if they stay just 1 hour, but they may come back and discover something else after that. And when they grow up, they also can discover differently the things that are presented here.
Wonderful. And as you have been working during a decade for Culture Box, which kind of, you told about the fact that it's very important for children to have that socialization and to have that direct contact to raw materials like food, etc., etc. But I'm sure also you were planning to, I don't know, scale, maybe it's not the right word, but Philharmonie des enfants also for everyone across the country and maybe abroad. So is there a way to participate to that adventure without being located in Paris and Parisian region?
Well, there are 2 ways for that. First of all, is the digital offer we are about to produce. Now there are only 1 podcast and a video series dedicated to Jean de La Fontaine. There are also different educational books that help teachers to bring their classes in the area. But we will we will improve this offer and make it grow with other contents, of course, in the next months and years. And the second answer to your question is that we hope that the concept of Philharmonie des enfants will make little sister all around France and the world. Of course, we are about to collaborate with foreign institutions to complete their proposals to children with probably not the whole path of the Philharmonie des enfants, but probably different installations or just one installation which is able to go through different countries or institutions. So we're about to think of it, but it's the next the next goal of our work since we have opened.
Wonderful. As we were preparing the show with Mathilde, I noticed 2 words that came through my mind. Despite the gigantism of the enterprise and the huge success it is already, there was such a feeling of generosity coming from you and from Laurent Bell initiating that process and the whole team around, because Philharmonie de Paris is now more than 700 employees, if I'm right, including Orchestre de Paris. And also the humility. I remember I made some notes, you were telling me we are not sure we are going in the right direction. So I want to stress that, because when you see the spaces, and it looks like, wow, this is a complete achievement. But of course, it is a great achievement. It is also the beginning of something. And you also noticed very warmly the fact that you are discovering some kind of transmedia ways. And we come back to this with Géraldine later on, because I know that you were recognizing Géraldine's work on that. Maybe let's cross the channel first. Joe, I think this is the ultimate argument for Scotland to join the EU back. You can see what we can do with EU debt and not only finances. I'm not sure about the business model of the Philharmonie des enfants, but there is some public funds, but also a lot of private funding. So let's pay homage also to this. So Joe, you have, if I'm right, more than 1/3 of your payroll and human resources dedicated to participation, education. You have introduced things like Children's Messiah. So it's not the Philharmonie des enfants, but the Messie des enfants, the Handel's one. I'm not talking about Jesus Christ. So please tell us more about that.
Thank you. I'm actually really glad you came to me because I was looking at, there were so many touch points in what Mathilde was saying. And although the Philharmonie des enfants is on such a bigger scale, the things that we are trying to do at Dunedin Consort, where we have 5 employees and I have 1 person in charge of education, it's still the same, many of the same ideas. A couple of things occurred to me. One is about ownership and empowering children, and a lot of what Mathilde was showing us around the areas was about allowing the individual to access something that means something to them. One of the things that we try and do in our schools workshops, so we run these schools workshops every year that run up to our Children's Messiah, and we try and introduce children to kind of 3 main components of music making: performing, listening, and creation. And we're trying to always give them ownership over those elements, so they get to create some music and to show that even with no prior skills of any kind, if you think you know nothing about music, you can make music, and to give them a taste of what it's like to perform, and what it's like to listen and to be exposed to music. And also, I believe, yeah, so come back to the Children's Messiah, I believe in introducing children to music as a way of inspiration, and I believe in aspiration as well, to exposing them to high quality performance. So not dumbing down this phrase that we have in the UK, but exposing them to real live high quality music making. So this Children's Messiah we do every year is it's a mini version of Handel's Messiah. It's 45 minutes long, and we kind of take them through some of the arias and choruses and tell them a bit about how the piece works. But it's also an introduction to the orchestra and to a chorus and to soloists. And it's a way of showing them. It's a way of showing them that actually classical music can be for everyone, and you don't have to know about it to find it exciting. For many of those children, it's the first time they've ever come into a concert hall, let alone heard an orchestra live or a chorus live. And we find it's really exciting for them, and we don't want to dumb that down and sort of turn it into something else. I believe that actually anyone can access that form of music making. And the other thing, just to go back to, is back to singing, actually. I spoke at the beginning about how I was involved in the Sing Up program many years ago. I think one of the fantastic things about singing is that it doesn't require any skills, any equipment. It's free, and you can do it whenever and wherever, and it brings us together collectively, and it can we all know as musicians it produces endorphins, it makes you feel good. And so one of the things that we try and introduce in our workshops from the very beginning is singing, because anybody can do it, and it can make you feel good, and it can bring you together with other people. So that's a few things about the sort of the touch points in our program. During lockdown, we obviously couldn't get into schools, and that was a big barrier for us in terms of being able to do the education work that we do here. So we did take it online, and that in itself was a challenge, but we adapted our program, and we rather than looking at Handel's Messiah, we transformed it into a program about opera. The thing that was important for us about opera was that there's something for everyone in opera, and we wanted to show children that you might not think you're the greatest singer in the world, or you might not like being on stage, but I bet there's something else for you in opera. Perhaps you're really interested in design, perhaps you're really interested in production. We wanted to show them that the range of things that you could do within the operatic world. So we created this 6-part series called the Dunedin Guide to Opera. Each video takes a different element of opera, and then that became the basis of the program that we did in schools with these online workshops. And the schools created their own opera from every element. Like, they designed the costumes, they designed the props, they created the music. It was a challenge because we weren't allowed to sing in schools at the time because it was Corona unfriendly. So we had our musicians perform and record the music that they composed, but every single element of it was something that those classes had created. They each wrote a scene, and then together we ended up with this opera. It was the prequel to Dido and Aeneas, by the way. So it's what happens before Dido and Aeneas, all down to them. But for us, what the important thing was that they created it and they had ownership over it, and they could feel proud of what they had achieved. And also they could feel that they came to it knowing nothing or thinking they knew nothing, but actually look what amazing things they could create if they were given kind of the opportunity to do so. So it's a little flavor of what we've been doing.
Wow, I love your work about empowering. I think the Philharmonie De Paris through Demos initially, and Marielle Cafafa, we come back also to this, now to Philharmonie des enfants, is trying to empowering many children and so upcoming adults. You may have seen that what both of you, Mathilde and Joe, you've got to manage, but it is in launching phase, so we do apologize her and for having to leave us. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry.
We will pay a visit with a Scottish ensemble for sure, and musicians and Joe to the Philharmonie des enfants. Thanks again. Let's come back maybe to the transmedia concept. Géraldine, so Sonic Solveig is a rare animal. It's performing art. It's also some kind of augmented reality and virtual reality. It's also a mindset. You've been very insisting as we were preparing the show that, of course, you don't recognize the barriers between childhood and adulthood when it's about feeling and sharing emotions with music. So you always gave me some anecdotes about promoters telling you, you should have told me this was for adults, and I would have brought my whole subscription basis to the show and not only mothers and or children. And so please share with us a little bit about what it means to build projects at Sonic Solveig, whom you're talking with, where we can see some projects on stage, how can we share the adventure with you?
Yes, I prefer speak about new audiences than young people or anything else, almost for entertainments. Not installation or immersive experience. I think it's important to segment the audiences, but I don't want to create an entertainment for an audience on one side and another side for young people. In a family concert, we have often more or as much adults as parents and families and children. I want to speak with them as they didn't came only for their children, but for them too. Maybe the success of the Pixar's movie is due to these two addresses. Adults as children can give their own jokes and understandings. I was very impressed these years by movies as Vice Versa, Coco, Soul, with issues like psychoanalysis and death. If we ask to Pixar script writers to which audience will you apply, I don't want what they will answer, but obviously, they will never forget the adults who see their movies. And for me, to segment two audiences is engendre, is consequently to a problem, an economic problem, because there will be two budgets for a concert. It's a big problem in the institution. The budget for young people or new audience is like we consider the audience, the new audience, as a sous-public, as an overrated audience. In theater in France, we have a very famous director who creates theater for young people, but we don't have a recognized director for the new audience or young people in music. For example, a singer will work as much for a concert for adults than a concert for children. And there is no reason to split the budget in two for young and new audience. And because it's the most difficult audience I know, if the concert is not good, they will never come back. And without those audiences, I don't know for who the classical music will play next year. People getting old won't go to the concert hall just because they're getting older. It's false. I think the main problem is not to prepare the audiences to the symphonic music, but to don't prepare the classical music to the new world, a new audience, a population with different origins who have cultural rights, different as the classical music. It's our culture, but less interesting to their cultures. It works in both ways. I think it's very important.
Do you want to share some projects
yes.
and ideas, please?
We will play this creation with the National Orchestra of Avignon. And after that, I will give you other dates. So it's an immersion in the head of Berlioz.
Compris? Je récapitule. Je prends les corps, puis les bois, puis les cordes en pizzicato, puis avec archet.
Do you hear?
Ça, personne ne l'a jamais entendu, parce que personne ne l'a jamais écrit. Ils vont adorer. Il me faut un orchestre avec 467 musiciens. Quatre octobasses et 30 pianos. Je suis bien. Tu dis toujours que...
Vous avez bien entendu?
Yeah, we did. It was excellent.
Ah,
excellent.
It's a good example, this entertainment, because the address is very for new audiences who never go to concert, to a classical concert, and for young people because they listen and take a lesson about orchestration of the symphony orchestra, fantastic symphony. And with this show, with this entertainment, we have created an immersive experience in augmented reality or virtual reality, as you want, and you can enter in the head of Berlioz. In the entertainment, you see a composer who composed in his room a piece for a symphonic orchestra, but in the experience, you play with this instrument in the orchestra, and when you move in your room, you can listen each instrument separately in spatialization in 360 degrees.
Qui donc va avoir plein d'hallucinations, c'est-à-dire qu'on va autopsier son cerveau, on va marcher sur son cerveau sur une surface de 6 mètres de diamètre, ronde, on va faire ressurgir toutes les chimères, tout ce qu'on racontait aux enfants pour les effrayer, pour ne pas qu'ils aillent dans les forêts. Donc il y a le loup-garou, il y a la dame blanche, il y a des Hérodes qui sont inspirés du roi d'Hérode. Et donc tous ces personnages-là ont capturé un instrument de l'orchestre, ou plusieurs, et le but du jeu donc est de libérer ces instruments pour pouvoir passer à l'étape suivante. Donc c'est un prototype de jeu vidéo à ce jour qu'on a pu présenter au festival New Images à la sélection officielle. On a pu aussi expérimenter le prototype dans 40 collèges et lycées du Vaucluse l'année dernière pendant le confinement avec l'Orchestre national d'Avignon-Provence. Seconde partie du jeu, donc on va se retrouver au milieu d'un orchestre. Il y a un feu au milieu, c'est le feu du sabbat, et tous les instruments vont venir danser la ronde du sabbat autour de nous. Et là, on va pouvoir cliquer sur chacun des instruments pour pouvoir les entendre de façon isolée. Donc on n'est plus qu'un dispositif binaural, on est sur un dispositif de spatialisation sonore à 360.
Voilà. It gives a good idea of what is this experience, and the next creation we will do. It's for Brussels, the Belgian National Orchestra in December, and for the first time we have residents in theater, a national theater, to create a show about music. But I'm very happy that the domain of theater really interesting about music for new audience. We have success with this milieu.
Wonderful. I find it very clever to have Hector Berlioz anticipating Yanis Xenakis detector on a digital tool, as you showed. Apropos digital tools, we all know Berliner Philharmoniker with their digital concert halls have been very much in advance of everyone. But they had also a very, very offensive and ambitious educational program. So Cathy, you've been leading it. And at the same time, you have been also building a repertoire of different compositions, collaborative performances. You have an ongoing project, I think a yearly project in Austria called Lautstark, if I'm rightly informed. So please give us a 360 degrees description of what you have done in the 15 years you have been proactively working on in that area.
Without wanting to appear too old, it's actually a bit longer, but anyway, yes. So the work in the Berlin Phil, I think we've all agreed on many concepts, and we've all spoken about inclusiveness, about democracy in music making, about creativity in accessibility, and making music that works for all people from all walks of life, diversity in music immersion. And there are all these concepts which we're all sort of trying to support, and we're all looking at ourselves critically, at our own practice to see, are we meeting all of these extraordinary things that we're trying to do? And I think, when you're involved in teaching, as you are, Marielle, I'm sure that with your research, you're every day learning, looking, recreating the way you approach things. I know that I am, because every time you do a project, of course, you're learning from your participants. And there is the thing too of, wanting to create with participants, which is something that I'm very, very involved in. Lautstark is a concept that we're in our 14th year now. It's a yearly meeting up of 50 to 60 children with 10 instrumental teachers and a staff of 3 composers. And the idea is to have a very comprehensive music making week, so that we don't bring any music, we bring little snippets that we can play together in tutti, because the kids have at least 2 years of music making experience. But we have compositional groups where the kids divide up into all sorts of different instrumental combinations and make a 8-minute piece of music. We have these times in the day where everyone comes together and improvises. And we have times where we start the day with warming up, with singing, with dancing, with using the body. It's a very physical way of making music. We're all in the country. We go for walks together every day. We listen for sounds. We come back, and at the end, it's linked to a performance, which is a very sort of multi-talented type of or multi-approach performance. Often there are other artistic disciplines involved. We make operas, we make radio plays, Last year, we made films and made music to the films. So I think these are all sort of formats that are not foreign to anybody. But I think what I do like to concentrate on is the physicality of music making, the creativity of music making, the ownership, the exchange between children that can go on, the exchange that you can create as an older person by saying, well, you know, we're investigating and looking at this. I'll come back in 5 minutes and see where you are. And actually then coming back and from this sort of rather cowed little group of people thinking, oh, what are we going to do? And what's all this about? And then suddenly they're all crazy and they're all talking and deciding on ideas, and they've already made a story. And that's what I love. I think that it was fascinating seeing the Philharmonie De Paris. I mean, I think that, and the Sonic Solveig, I think, you know, it's just so extraordinary to see all these different ways of creating together with people. And I think as long as we just have our critical hats on all the time and saying, okay, we've done this and this, can we actually move more into that? Or maybe we should have, you know, one of these types of approaches. I think it's important to just keep looking and keep assessing where we're going, because there's no one answer. As Sir Ken Robinson put it, you know, we're moving into an area where we're teaching kids, and in 20, 30 years, we don't know what they're going to need, but we do know that they're going to need to be able to solve whatever's going to come up at them. They're going to have to be creative thinkers. They're going to have to be solution seekers. And we've got to be able to sort of encourage kids and to be able to just facilitate ways for kids to be able to think and act together, to socialize together, to search for solutions together. And I think whatever we do in whichever area we're acting in, I think we have to, you know, look at this different ways of making music and being together. Yes, in my so with Lautstark, for me, that is a gorgeous way of making music together, because we've got time. And time is an element, you know, where it's a very dicey thing, time, you know. How much time do you spend with kids making music? Do you actually oversee them learning a technique? Do you oversee them just having 30 minutes together? Do you facilitate an hour together? Do you facilitate 3 weeks of workshops and then a concert together? All of these different formats need different designs, need different times, and they're all relevant and they're all fine. And I think that that's all that I meant about sort of, you know, looking at the various formats that we're working in. It's not the only format, but let's make the most of the design. Let's make the most of the qualities of the people that are coming together. So that's all a very general sort of thing. The last, just to put in another word, the last project at the moment that I'm involved in was I was asked to do a contemporary music format that involved audience participation. And I created something around Midsummer Night's Dream. Any person of any age can come. Doesn't matter from what walk of life, you will find yourself with 2 stones making sounds within the concert hall. You'll be making up texts and having the ensemble improvise to the texts, all very different ways of actually having the audience participate. It involved a lot of organization because of COVID. But you know, we're all creative thinkers and we're all solution seekers as musicians. So that was the latest thing I was involved in. I'm just interested in continuously finding new formats and new ways of relational music making and creation. But a big shout out to you all. I think you're all doing extraordinary things.
Thanks. May we have your insights on the following thing? I mean, from the almighty music writing composer for a very sophisticated group of musicians like symphonic orchestras or contemporary music ensembles, up to a facilitator for broad audiences, children not being so trained in music making. That's a huge revolution in some way. It's a very profound disruption. Would you say you are active in Germany? You know very well Anglo-Saxon world, countries, etc. And you've been very active in very different parts of the world. How would you judge the way the conservatories, music schools are coping with that disruption? Would you say your colleagues or understanding this phenomenon? I will exactly ask the same question to Marielle later on about conductors. Would you say this is something which they are anticipating, or this is pretty much something only an avant-garde like you has been understanding and is generously offering her or his services?
That's a very, very good question. It's a tricky question because I'm going to probably put my foot in it, but I do think that what we as contemporary musicians should be looking at is what is our role in life? What is our social role? What is our political role? What is our role in actually simply helping people and facilitating people to participate in sound? There are so many roles that we can look at, and I look at it as sort of a continuance of agency, you know, where on one hand we might just be performing musicians where we're generously giving of our art, but on the other hand we might be then as musicians before the concert giving some perhaps tools or insights into the music that we're playing, and on the other hand we might be performer composers or musicians who are actually creating with kids and making music along the lines of perhaps music they'll hear in concerts. We might be musicians who are also very much into digital technology and hugely interested in perhaps finding some sort of digital formats that will bring children to music. We might be, you know, dancers, movers, creatives that want to actually introduce physical aspects. So I just see this sort of line of continuance. And I think music schools, obviously, that are training musicians to be professional musicians, it is really hard for them to actually convince you know, young, ambitious students to spend some time accruing the skills that you need to lead a workshop or to facilitate a democratic discussion of you know, how you're going to create a piece together. These are all skills that are really incredibly necessary. And I think in some countries there's more awareness, there's more, you know, invitation to, and more opportunities, because it, you know, when young musicians see, oh, I can actually have some of my musical career in facilitating music workshops, I can actually earn my way doing that, or being involved in developing digital tools, or, you know, when young musicians are made aware of the, you know, agency that you can have as a musician, I think it might help music schools to include more courses of that sort. I think, you know, there have to be all sorts of people getting their heads together and, you know, updating the musical skills that are offered to young musicians. It's of course different for every country, and I don't want to generalize, but, you know, I think it is a very necessary conversation. I have a little video that I can show right now. It's 40 seconds. Shall I show it?
Yes, please.
So I have to share the screen, correct? So I press share screen and then I share. So now we've got this green thing coming up, and I will now go. Whoops, it's not liking that. I'll start again. And what I'd love to say about that project, it's based around Stockhausen Gruppen. So I've done that project in about 5 different ways with kids from 3 till 5, kids from 8 till 11, as you see, young adults. Every time we sort of had a slightly different approach. Either we had these weird stories of planets, because Gruppen in a way is like galaxies and constellation of stars. So we had weird stories of planets with green-eyed monsters and 5 legs, or we had, as you saw just now, where kids were actually thinking of planets, but then they very quickly got into serial thinking and attributing different parameters. We went from the density of a planet to the actual density of a musical sound. So I think, you know, there are so many different ways of introducing musics. And I think that, you know, at music schools and colleges, these tools, I mean, they're around, the skills are around, the people are around who can teach these skills. So, you know, I think we need to have a conversation about it.
And we saw you had 2 female conductors, I mean, you and female conductors. So that's also brilliant. So let's go to Marielle, another female conductor. Marielle, as you were introducing yourself, you said minutes ago you had a very peculiar way of conducting. What did you mean by that?
Yes, I have a very special vision of conducting because as a conductor, I feel myself like a dancer, like a singer, like a pianist, like a flautist, like a stylist also, and like a designer. So I conduct in a very special way, and my goal is to show that music is very how can I say, moving, very human, very I don't know if I can say aquatic, just like water, just moving, only moving. So it's my way of conducting, and with the musician, children of adults. I have to, I like to how can I say, to develop all human quality. All human qualities is very important for me. When I'm conducting, I look at the musician, and for them, it's very important my way of looking at them. I'm how can I say? For me, it's very important that the musician feel that they are important when I am in front of them. It's very important. And with my my student, and also with the children I conduct, I develop qualities like self-confidence, or self-esteem, or self-awareness. It's very, 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 very important for me. So as a conductor, I have a whole vision of music, but also of life. For me, it's very important to make a link between life and music. I conduct like I breathe, like I am, like I am every day, every single day. So for me, conducting it's a way of life. So a way of living, a way of life, and that's what I share with the musicians.
Can you maybe introduce us a little bit more about your specific work for demos? So what it means to be a demos conductor throughout the year? So how many people are involved? What are you doing? What kind of repertoire? How it articulates with the rest of the Philharmonie De Paris program and activities?
Yes, with demos, we work on classical pieces like Lully, Jean-Baptiste Lully, Henry Purcell, Jacques Offenbach also, and also traditional music from Brazil, Brazilian music. And so it's eclectic. So I use pieces from different era, different centuries. Yes, different centuries. So it's important for them to hear, to discover different pieces of classical music. What would you?
I mean, the specific target or people above 10, and we were checking with Joe, for instance, about the necessity of binding bridges and fulfilling the chain, not letting anyone in the ether. That's pretty much, I think, the scope and the goal of demos. So tell us about which age you were starting with, up to which age, and what are people becoming once they leave demos, how the Philharmonie is trying to pick them up, or conservatories or other kind of music schools and music education.
Yes, the children are age 7 to 12. And then after demos, because demos, I will be with them during 3 years, only 3 years. Then they can go to the conservatories, they can make music then. So many children practice at conservatory, but others don't many others forgive music, but Philharmonie de Paris can't I don't know how to say that. Yes. The project it's during 3 years for the Philharmonie. Then it's the territories are who are give them opportunity of play music in conservatory or others place. So because Philharmonie de Paris wants to develop orchestra in all over the territories and in several towns, not in one town but different towns. So Philharmonie de Paris can stay always in a town. So 3 years in a town, but or 6 years maybe, and then it will change the territories. So Philharmonie de Paris, it's here for the beginning to impulse something, energy, and not to stay in a long time. So it's very important to know that.
Great. Cathy was underlining the very fact that it's important for most of people to become aware of the musician's agency. And also I wanted to stress the fact that demos is not only about conductors like you being involved in the project, but also with professional musicians. Many orchestras throughout France, starting with the Orchestre de Paris members, are participating. And this is probably part of the capacity of the border people and citizens to being aware of the musician's agency. So musicianship as a citizenship in some way. And this is, I think, pretty much a program we can only wish for our policymakers, to whom we are speaking right now. Thanks again for listening to the show, that we wish that we be inspired to continuing at funding all these projects all throughout Europe and abroad, from the British Islands up to the European continent, to Peninsula, to help musicians to be in contact with children and their families, and to have this inspirational touch light, which will be then active, probably unconsciously, through their inner childhood, as Marielle would have said, up to their, I won't speak about death, but at least adulthood and maturity. Can it be a conclusive word, or does anyone want to propose another one?
I just want to say joy.
Cathy.
Let's not forget joy, music and joy.
Have no better conclusion. Thanks so much to all of you. Thanks to Mathilde, who had to leave. Thanks also to, we had 1 or 2 or 3 other participants who fondly wished to join us, and we've been hoping they could up to the last moment, but definitely they had very, very serious grounds not to be with us, but that for the next time. And I leave it up to Paris again and to Françoise. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thank you very much to all of you for your great input in that discussion. I think it's a fascinating world to discover, and to it gives a very optimistic view on the projects and projections, actually, on what music can bring and give to the new generations. So we will see you again next week, live from the Centre National de la Musique. And I wish you a very good day in the meantime. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.